Hello and welcome. I'm your host, author Ryan M. Oliver, and this is the Mighty Books Podcast. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Mighty Books Podcast. Today with me, featured author is Chad Boudreaux. Chad, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Good to be on your show.
Awesome. Thank you for coming on. I appreciate it. Well, we're here to talk about you and your book. So, what is the title of your book?
The book is called Homecoming Queen, and it was published recently, and it's a thriller.
Excellent. What is Homecoming Queen about? A quick synopsis, if you will.
Yeah, so it's about a protagonist, Annika Raven, who is going back to her hometown for the first time in a few years to really save her little sister from a natural disaster and some issues going on within their home. And the problem she has is when she gets her sister, she's having a really hard time getting out of town for a variety of reasons. So we follow her journey and kind of figure out whether or not she's going to make it, and if so, how.
Okay. Now, what would inspired Homecoming Queen?
So the book is really a love song to my hometown in South Texas, Corpus Christi. The town itself in the book is called Miranda, but it's an amalgamation of townships and cities in South Texas. And I wrote the book because it's such an amazing area and culture, and I wanted people to know about it and the story that I had in mind, particularly as it related to hurricanes, which is the natural disaster that I referenced,
Hmm.
and the culture surrounding the hurricanes is very intriguing. And then just the again, the people there are a lot different than what you would see around certainly our country, but around the world.
Yeah. What makes them different than folks from around the world or in this country? Just a little more caring, compassionate, or
Well, yeah, it's nothing's perfect, of course, no culture is, but I lived there for my first 18 years, and until I left to go to college and then moved to DC and other places, not to disparage other towns, but we speak of a melting pot. It was a true melting pot when I grew up there, and we from all sorts of different characteristics, you would say immutable characteristics. Of course, people noticed them, but they didn't identify who we were. We were Corpus Christians and Texans, and even being Corpus Christians, much different than the rest of Texas. So it was a special place and time. Maybe it's not like that anymore. I haven't been there, lived there for a while, but
yeah,
it certainly was when I was growing up.
yeah. Do you visit there much?
I don't anymore. I've lost my oldest have passed on,
Uh,
and others have moved on to different cities and different lives.
Unfortunately, that's how it is with small towns in general. Just things I see it in my own town. Things that I remember, they're slowly changing, adding more things. Slow, it gets bigger. Some usually the case may be, and the attitude changes or the soul of it changes a little bit. So that's something. Now, your homecoming queen main character, is she based off of anyone in particular, or just kind of a manifestation of your own ideas?
She is actually, again, a composite of probably many people. She
Sure.
obviously a woman, and probably some of the strongest women that I've been around, and I've been around a lot of them. And but she has my negative characteristics and most of the positive characteristics of the strongest women I know, and so it makes for a very interesting character. And I didn't know how she was going to turn out until really the last few chapters, and I'm very happy with it.
Awesome, awesome. How long did it take you to write Homecoming Queen?
9 months.
9 months. Nice. Just slamming it out, or was it pretty kind of a consistent, just day-to-day work, grind, love,
So
hate?
So my first book was a spy thriller based on my work at DOJ, Department of Justice, and but this one I had to write, and it was just on my mind, and I could not get it off of my mind. And so in terms of discipline, I get up every morning, early, 4:30 or so, and that's when I do my writing before I go to work. And for my first book, it definitely was not that easy. Second book, just because I wanted to get the characters out, I wanted to get the story out. I wanted to see what was going to happen to my characters because I didn't know until the very end.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was a disciplined process
Mhm.
for that one. Very easy to write.
Well, that's a blessing. That's absolutely a blessing. Sometimes it can be kind of I can't say a struggle, but it doesn't flow on paper quite as well as you want it to. But I think it's because you might have just a very refined way of looking at something, but versus it just coming naturally. But what inspired you to go in the thriller route? Just something you've always enjoyed?
Yeah, so for the thriller genre, I grew up reading like Brad Meltzer and Robert Ludlum and mostly spy thrillers and of that nature. So I started with a spy thriller. My third book is going to go back into that cadence, but this one was, a general thriller. I just that's just what I like. I like to read that. I like to read nonfiction and thrillers. So
Mhm.
that's kind of where I landed.
Nice. Now, you take a lot of I'm assuming you take some historical or real life events, obviously, and kind of twist them a little bit and make them your own.
Yeah, so there's a lot of Texas culture in the book, and one of the elements of that culture on the Gulf Coast there is this idea of measuring time in hurricanes. And so my grandfather, who raised me, he was an old timer, and there's old timers in this book, and they kind of sit outside of this opera house that's now kind of a saloon and sundry shop, and they talk about hurricanes and how they've influenced their lives and the land and the culture and the city. And that's real. I mean, my grandfather, I was born in 1973. We had a big hurricane in Texas called Hurricane Celia in 72, and he would always tell everyone that I was born a year after Celia.
So what about the political thrillers that what I guess what aspects of this make it a political thriller versus a spy thriller or anyone else is not really into political thrillers?
Yeah, small town politics also drives a lot of towns really around the world, but in Texas they seem to be magnified. If you could see behind me, I've got a bunch of books. You'll see the Cairo series for LBJ, one of the best nonfiction series ever written. And LBJ started in what would be Miranda. He was South Texas, and the politics there are very powerful even today.
Wow.
And so they drive a lot of behaviors. They drive a lot of actions that happen in a town like that. And so that's really what the politics is, more so than national politics, Republican, Democrat. It's more of a mayoral, uh, city council kind of feel that is certainly political, but more small p.
hmm I feel like with you focusing on politics and thrillers and then incorporating it's a sister relationship
Yeah.
going in and I feel like that's more appropriate than having on a national scale. I don't know, it just feels like more of a microcosm. You can get kind of the nitty gritty more and maybe a little more of the emotional factors and how it impacts one person's life can impact a whole town technically. I mean, if it's big enough, if it's a huge enough impact. Now, with your time in the DOJ, and you said you were over in DC for a hot minute there. Did that influence your writing or your storytelling at all?
Yeah, so I was hired by the Department of Justice the night before the September 11 attacks back in 2001. And so
Wow.
I was living in Texas at the time and moved up with my wife and my then Great Dane. He's since passed on. But when we got there, the energy in that town was palpable. And working for the department at that time, including the FBI, was very interesting, very harrowing.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was forced to really want to just write stuff down as I saw it, and at that time I had found really as it relates to my first book a hidden floor on the main Justice Building. I called it a hidden floor. It's the old FBI ballistics lab, and it's the eighth floor, and hardly anybody who works at DOJ or has knows that it's up there. And I got a custodian to take me up there and walk around, and that became the basis of my first book. And it worked out famously, and all the justice community was surprised. And I've got people now that want to go see this floor, and so that's really what inspired me to start writing.
That's awesome. You didn't do a lot of writing when you were younger, like through school or anything like that?
Definitely did. I've
Okay.
always said that everybody should learn a foreign language, try to get something published, and play a musical instrument. And so I always aspired to get something published. I didn't know if it would be a poem or whatever. I'm not terrible at writing poems, but I could do creative writing. So I took some really good creative writing classes. I had some good teachers along the way,
Oh yeah.
in high school, at university. And, but I mean, you have to get out on your own and start doing it, as you know before. I mean, there's not you can't teach a whole lot. You can teach grammar and you can teach style, but then it's you got to find your own voice.
That is true. And really, you got to do it. You just got to go do it. You got to do the work. Just like, and honestly, with anything with trades, craftsmanship, writing, any kind of skill, the only way you're going to do it is by doing it. And usually you start off doing it wrong, and then you make the appropriate transition to doing it correctly. I've always learned best by failing and then going back and fixing my problems. All of a sudden, things just click. So, I mean, that
100%.
you have to
And
literally anything
people
in life.
And people who ask you after you've been published, like how long did it take? People that are aspiring to get published, they're getting rejected,
Mhm.
rejected, rejected. And that's the cadence, right? That's the norm. And what you say is, almost like in acting, well, it may be a rite of passage. And I think it is a rite of passage, but one, I didn't know this until the end because I feel like I get paid to write legal briefs,
Yeah.
right? So I have to be good at that to get paid to do it, hopefully.
Hmm.
But that doesn't just transition over to creative writing, and
No.
certainly not the novel context. So I had several years before my first book got published, and I look back now, and my first few drafts that I submitted were trash. I mean,
Sure.
it's just not. And so it is a rite of passage, but you're also learning along the way. And every time you go back, and those of us that don't quit, you go back and you get better. You get a little better. You get a little, and then all of a sudden, whatever you're presenting is worthy of publication or it's not.
Yeah, it also instills a level of grit that I think we all need in life too, because life's going to knock you down and there's going to be failures all the live long day. Even professionals are able to get knocked down, they fail too, but it's can you get back up and keep moving, keep learning? That's what's going to define you as whatever it is you're pursuing. Hey everyone, thank you for making it this far into the interview. Hope you're loving it. I just wanted to take a quick moment to tell you about a gift for you all, a free book just waiting to be read. Just visit ryanmoliver.com and hit the button to receive a free book. It's that easy. Also, consider signing up for the newsletter, where each month you'll receive more fun reading to enjoy. That's ryanmoliver.com. ryanmoliver.com. I'm curious on your any kind of research you had to do. So, I mean, a lot of it came from your mind and your experience, but did you have to do any particular research at all for your books?
Yes, and different kind of research for different books. So my first book is very national security, law enforcement related. I didn't have to do a whole lot of research in that regard, but it also has a special forces element. And so I kind of embedded myself, if you will, not in the operations, but I recruited some people that I knew in DC that were former special ops or current special ops, and they beta read my book. They told me you're way off here. Oh, you got that right. You should use this language. So that was kind of the research I did there. And then on for Homecoming Queen, a lot of time researching the hurricanes and the history of hurricanes and how they impacted communities. And I learned a lot doing that, and I think it helped the book.
A lot of different details, I guess, in the matter of how they would approach like rescue, like FEMA and rescuing or giving aid to the towns.
There's a little bit of that, kind of the psychology behind disaster relief and
Interesting.
preparation and those kinds of things. But even more interesting, there are certain things you find, and you know this as an author. I mean, you start down a research path and you find these nuggets that you never expected to find.
Yeah.
And one of them for Homecoming Queen is I found that all of the most of the major, and this is not a political statement, this is just a fact. Most of the hurricanes that have occurred over that have been recorded, the biggest ones all seem to happen during a Republican presidential administration. So it's just one of those things that just jumped off the page when I saw it because I tried to tick and tie the years, and I think these years are all when Republicans were in office, and sure enough, it's pretty close. I mean, 90+%.
That is a interesting coincidence. So I'll just say I'm not sure whether it's for its benefit or downside. I'm not really
Yeah,
sure.
kind of depends on how they respond, I guess.
Yeah, but that also goes without saying too, the level of grit. We just talked about grit a little bit, but the level of grit in those towns for the amount of times they've probably seen their houses destroyed or damaged and then recovery. So the characters, I assume, in your books probably have some certain level of grit, like the old timers you were talking about. They measure it in storms, not necessarily years. Time in storms, not years.
And it's not just grit, it's stubbornness. And so for us, it became so when I talked about 1972, the year
Yep.
before I was born, Celia shook up my hometown.
Yeah.
So I heard about that ad nauseum for years. And so in 1980, we had a hurricane called Hurricane Allen, and everyone evacuated. Like we were all going 300 miles north. And then 4 years, and then nothing happened. It was kind of like high winds and kind of petered out right before it got there. And then fast forward 4 years again, and then everybody evacuated again. And then nothing really happened. And then so it's kind of like, okay, now we're not evacuating anymore. That's too
Mhm.
much hassle. I don't want to sit on the road for 8 hours with nothing to eat, all this stuff. So, so in the book, there's a couple of things going on. It's the town itself almost takes on a little bit of human characteristics because, like I said before, most people in my town left.
Yeah.
I left. The professionals left for various reasons. But the town is almost has a jealous personality, does not want people to leave, wants to keep people there. And it depends on how you look at it. Somebody can look at it and say, well, that's the political influence. Some people can look at it and say, that's we got a little, something else going on.
Sure.
But in any event, it's this feeling that the town itself does not want people to leave. So people are the mayor in that town is trying to get people to leave and they are saying no and she's losing her mind and that's part of what's driving the action.
So do you think it's more stubbornness, not loyalty, or it's a bit of both? They're blended together. Stubbornness, loyalty to the town.
Maybe a little bit of both, but it's mostly stubbornness and then it becomes pride, right? Then it becomes
It's true.
why would you're leaving, like we don't leave.
When did you start writing, having the idea sparking for Homecoming Queen? When did that come into your brain?
I mean, it's sad, but I have the specific years, 2016. So I
So,
remember driving home to see my grandmother, who was she was in we were moving her into some elderly care, and I remember just driving, and the story started formulating in my mind, and I think I wanted to capture kind of going back home and seeing all these things I hadn't seen in a while. I drove rather than flew in. I drove from a bigger town into my hometown, which I rarely did, and I just saw all these things that you don't see in Washington State or Washington D.C. They're
Mhm.
just different. So I started to catalog that and started to, weave a story together.
Interesting. Just from driving through, it's funny how different, just moments in life, something that's so innocuous, you've driven before, but just driving down, coming to a different perspective of your hometown hits you and all of a sudden starts unraveling a story. It's very interesting how that unfolds. But what feedback have you gotten from, I would say, friends, family, and maybe those who were born and raised in Corpus Christi?
So excellent feedback and a really good story I think to go along with that. I have two of my friends from back home that I grew up with that are both in Hollywood. One of them
Oh,
is, an actress, and one of them is pretty high up in Warner Brothers. And the one of them is from Mexico City. And my original protagonist was not Annika Raven, it was Maya Molina. And my beta reader from Mexico City, whom I trust greatly, said, it doesn't matter how well you do managing stereotypes, this is not going to work. And she said, you can get away with writing on behalf of a woman. And I think you've done that. But you cannot get away with writing as a white male, a Latina figure. And I grunted and I hissed and I maybe cussed, under my breath, but
Sure.
she was right. And just things like because I had things coming out of me, like I loved one of the only things I eat in the morning coming out of my upbringing is breakfast tacos. And I had Maya Molina eating a breakfast taco, and I remember this woman telling me, "No, you can't do that because they're gonna they're gonna attribute stereotypes onto you that you don't think you're doing." So it was an easy transition, but just getting that feedback was amazing. And then the reviews that I read, they all now people love Annika. They love her personality. The other feedback I got was that Annika was too mean, and I softened her a little bit.
Okay.
And now, that paid dividends. Just
Mhm.
having great beta readers can really help cure your blind spots because you get into this and it's kind of hard to get your head out of the sand. So I had some very honest and capable beta readers for this book. And again, I think it really helped. And I can see their input that I took making its way through the reviews and the commenters.
Well, that's excellent. That's excellent. That's another just good reason, good example of the use of beta readers. Because several people have asked me over the course of several years of doing this, should I use beta readers? And at first I was kind of him and hawing. I said yes, but only do a select few, the ones you trust, and that will be willingly to give you will give you critiques enough that will change it, but not do it in a way that, demeans you and your path that you're on. Because I mean, we need encouragement as much as anybody to keep on this project. These projects are not easy. They take a long time. 9 months of dedication for
Yeah.
just writing the first draft, let alone editing it, then publishing it, and now marketing it. It is a lifelong project that you got to continue. So, any encouragement is great. So, good beta readers are they're priceless. They really are. Now, what did you have to do any like research or diving in, talking to other women on how to properly portray a woman going through a situation like this?
Same, it's the same women. They really helped me a lot, walk
Excellent.
through kind of chapter and verse, certain things. But I think, but one of the some of the feedback I got on that was don't go overboard.
Sure.
Like be yourself. There's no way you can escape yourself when you're writing a protagonist, and it's okay to if you make a mistake, it's going to be okay.
Yeah.
The editors are going to make sure you don't make too much of a mistake. So I had freedom to do that. And there wasn't a time when I really said, how would a woman think about it in this particular situation? Because I can't do that. That's not, it's beyond me. I mean, I can see what I see, but I can't live through that. So I'm very comfortable with where her character is, and she's probably got a lot of me in her.
Oh, I would assume so. Most main characters do have their authors in them to some degree. I mean, if you write them well enough and you're a good writer and you communicate properly, which as I think you said before, you write legal terms or legal documents, I believe is what you said, or
Correct.
legal
Yeah.
contracts. I mean, that with creative writing and just the time in which you spent doing this, you're gonna learn how to do it. And then also I think if you're breaking your character and going, how would a woman attack this or deal with this, your flow is going to be completely shot. So
Right.
as you're writing it, it doesn't make sense. So you going and doing it, I mean, you could be attacking it the same way another woman or a man would. It really doesn't matter a whole lot. Maybe if there's some internal monologue, that might be a little different, but other than that, I can't see a huge disparaging difference between the two. How about the editing process? Was that pretty seamless or begrudging, or how did that flow for you?
I mean, again, I think for this one, it was easier than the other books, just because this is a natural subject for me. Just in terms of editing, I mean, I'm a monster when it comes to editing. I edit
Okay.
and I edit again, and then I edit again, and on my seventh edit, I'll find mistakes. But that's normal. So I wouldn't say it was anything extraordinary. My my latest book that I just finished, we went through an editing process, and I had some kinks in it that needed to be ironed out that thread throughout the entire novel, and that's difficult because
Mm,
that's kind of a reconstruction project as opposed to crossing T's and dotting I's.
Yeah, absolutely. Can you talk a little about your newest project coming out, or is that still kind of, are you trying to keep
No, no, it's
coming
fine.
out?
It's almost done.
Yeah.
It'll be back in this. My first book was called Scavenger Hunt, and it'll be back in that Scavenger Hunt series.
Cool.
Number two book, it'll be called most likely Mob Justice,
Okay.
and it deals with a Justice Department lawyer who gets sent to really Chicago to prosecute the Chicago mobs there.
So you said that's one of the second in the spy thriller series.
Correct.
Okay. Are you going forward to make it a trilogy?
Well, I think that every story idea that I have from this point forward it can find its way in the Scavenger Hunt series. So I do think Homecoming Queen may be my best book ever that I'll write, but it'll be probably a standalone.
Yeah.
And then, unless we, have a call to bring some of these characters back. But before I was done with Homecoming Queen, there was a clarion call to bring some of the characters back in Scavenger Hunt. So I was excited to hear that, and all the story ideas that I have can fall nicely in
Oh
that
yeah.
bucket.
Oh, absolutely. And that's the fun thing about writing is you can just kind of keep going, especially if the readers are demanding it. I mean, are you going to deny them? I mean, come on. That's just more fun to it. So other than podcasts, are you doing any other kind of marketing with getting the Homecoming Queen out there for people to see?
Yeah, so one of the big events we have coming up is the LA Book Festival in at the end of April, and I will be there out in LA and doing some events, but just signing books while I'm there. So and then I have a couple of private events that I'm pretty excited about. In-person events in different cities, and just doing podcasts like these. So it's been
Fabulous.
great.
Yeah, that's great. Getting a lot of reviews or anything, or starting to go down that path and getting people to read it at least.
Yeah, really, really just trying to get the word out and trying to get people from the scavenger hunt side of things to make sure that they pay attention to this book as well. And I've got a whole new audience for this book, so I'm going to have to find a bridge somewhere to get the two together. But and people who love thrillers and love to just be taken away and read a good book, I hope will love this one.
I hope so too. Is there really that big of a difference audience-wise between a political thriller and a spy thriller? I wouldn't think too much, but there
No,
could be.
I mean, there are some people that they really like the Washington, D.C. side of things. And in the first book, I kind of take them behind the scenes and really bring in kind of a national security versus privacy kind of dynamic without getting political, but with political undertones that really drive what goes on in that city.
Hmm.
And it's more of a traditional kind of Robert Ludlum kind of book,
Okay.
whereas you might say this one is a little bit more on the Stephen King side of things.
Oh, really? Okay. A little
It's
more anticipation, potentially a little more, I can't say horror, I mean horror-esque, that's what he writes, but anticipation of
more,
something happening.
yeah, and less about the horror side of things, more like the Dark Tower
Mm.
kind of feel. Definitely not a horror book, but it'll keep you on your toes for sure.
Is it shorter chapters, kind of a good pace? Usually thrillers have a nice pace to it. Nothing too long, give you the good information and keep on going.
Yeah, I'm not wedded to particular structure, but I will say my scaffolding for all my books is 50 chapters and
Okay.
100,000 words. So it gives you a nice little clip. They're not all going to be 2,000 words, but it's not going to be far beyond that.
Yeah. Well, and I'm assuming now that you've done this, you're on your third book now. You've
Right.
probably got a pretty good repertoire, good routine now, it sounds like. So I assume that you'll probably only just be able to cinch that up even better to get it really, honestly, more efficiently finished, I would assume. But every book has its own challenges.
Yeah, I mean, and I'm being a lawyer, what I do is it's rules. Everything is rules and rules. And the great thing about living in this universe of creative writing is there's really are no rules, at least until you get to the publisher. And so I do have to have that. I call it scaffolding because it's not brick and mortar. It's not in, obviously in stone, but I do have to have like a roadmap or I will lose my mind and I'll get paralyzed. So the scaffolding is what helps drive my discipline. It doesn't mean I have to write 2,000 words in one day, but it means like I'm going to do it a chapter. I'm going to put together an outline that's going to be maybe back of the napkin It'll my characters will change my outline probably by chapter 20, but that's okay. I've got something that's driving me to move forward.
Yeah, yeah, you're kind of building the boat while you sail it almost a little bit,
Yeah,
but
right.
you have the plans for the damn boat. So
That's
it's
right.
all there. Yeah, you have everything you need. Okay, well that makes a lot of sense for how things go. A lot of people fly by the seat of their pants and do it. It sounds like that would drive you insane.
It would, and Blake Hudson was my protagonist in Scavenger Hunt, and he's more predictable than Annika Raven. He's not all that predictable, but she really threw me. She turned my outline upside down, tore it up, burnt it, and it's like I didn't know what she was going to do. And everything she did beyond what I would have planned her to do. Obviously, she's coming out of my head, but the character, there were certain things she could not do or had to do when I got to chapter 25 that I would have never predicted, and she surprised me and made the story that much better.
When the story surprises the author, it's gonna surprise the readers. So I think you've done a good job on that. I love that just discovery of when you're writing like, I did not see this happening. Who wrote this? Oh yeah, that was me. That was me. That's super cool, man. That's super cool. So I'm actually I'm quite curious where people can find Homecoming Queen and get in contact with you if they want to get a signed copy from you or hit you up and learn from you. So where can people get copies of Homecoming Queen and your other books as well?
Absolutely. The easiest place to go is my website, which is just my name.com, ChadBoudreaux.com. So chadboudreaux.com. Even if you misspell it in Google, you'll find it. And or you can just go to Amazon and everything's there.
Excellent. Awesome. Awesome. Well, Chad, thank you so much for coming on here. I appreciate you talking about Homecoming Queen and your experience writing the book. It's been fabulous talking to you. So thank you.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Awesome. And anytime you get more books out, you want to do this again, hit me up and I'd happy to host you again.
Yeah, that'd be great. Thanks.
Awesome. No problem. And good luck with everything. This sounds like it'd be really fun to read. I'm getting into more thrillers myself. They're just a good, fun, fast-paced book to get through. All right, guys, I hope you really enjoyed this. Go check out Homecoming Queen by Chad Boudreaux. It sounds like an excellent, quick, fast-paced, awesome ride. Go check it out now. Have a great rest of the day. And as always, stay mighty and keep reading.